right. So we're here at the PAX East 2013 Neverwinter party. Sort of not a typical Dungeons and Dragons location, perhaps. We're more like a Japanese fusion kitchen style thing.
Well, doesn't every single D&D adventure begin in a tavern? I mean, this is kind of close to that. Admittedly, an Asian fusion bar, but that's close to a tavern.
There's food and there's drinks. What is there not to like? Anyway, Neverwinter is really, it's an interesting story, just how that game has evolved over the years, and of course you've been there all along. Can you just, in your own words, describe what that's been like?
Well, it's been pretty amazing. I mean, we started out, before we were ever bought by Atari, we had an idea for a game that was based around user-generated content. We called it Primal Age. It was a primal fantasy, kind of barbaric MMO with user-generated content in it. Well, Atari came along, and they wanted to buy us, so they purchased us back in 2008. And it made perfect sense because they had the D&D license. We'll take Neverwinter, take that user-generated content game and turn it into a Neverwinter product. So we started working on it, and it was decided, for a whole variety of reasons, to do kind of a co-op game. So it would be a game you played with like 4 other players, but it wouldn't be an MMO. And then we were bought from by Perfect World, an MMO company. We were bought from Atari. And so they were like, hey, look, Neverwinter makes best sense as an MMO. And we agreed, we're an MMO company. And so the rest is history. We've been developing it ever since as an MMO and have increased the size and scale of the game dramatically. And Perfect World's really been great, helping us make it be the best game it can be.
So it's a series of fortunate or unfortunate events that led up to this, but it's an idea that hasn't really been sort of fully realized, even though you had that idea so long ago.
Yeah, it hasn't. I mean, up until now, this is the game that we intended to make maybe back in 2007, 2006, and we believe that user-generated content was something that MMOs could desperately use because players have such a need to create and share, and giving them that ability, but without having to have the immense technical knowledge to, make a rig and animate a rig and then make a skeleton and then put all the textures on it and the 3D objects. That's a lot of work to do. So what we've done with our tools is enable players to quickly and easily be able to create whatever it is that their hearts desire, from hard, intense quests to fun, lighthearted ones, whatever it is they want to do.
But let's be clear about this. I don't think it's a way out of sort of providing players with new content and sort of working on the game continuously when it's out, right? Because you're not just gonna see what players come up with. You're gonna do something. You're gonna have to support it yourself.
That's a basic principle. It's got to be a good MMO. Even without user-generated content, Neverwinter's got to be a great game. Because if you depend entirely upon the players to do everything, well then really what are we doing, right? It's got to be a fun game experience, and I think and I hope that you've had a chance to play, and judging by feedback, people are liking what they see so far. Neverwinter isn't your traditional MMO. It's an action combat game. So it's not your typical turn-based, click A for attack, go on auto attack. It's not like that at all.
So what are you letting people sample here at PAX East this year?
Well, this year, for the first time, we're revealing the Great Weapon Fighter. That's the 5th and final class that we'll have for launch. And they're playing here at PAX through a very special demo that we put together for them, where they go up against the infamous Captain Blackdagger. So that's what we have in store here.
So I guess it's quite a challenge to build a short enough MMO demo for people to enjoy, like the crowd at PAX, because you really can't have them play for an hour or two.
That is a challenge. To be honest, we spend a lot of time on these sort of convention adventures, and we have to be careful we don't spend too much time, because you want to make sure there's pacing, that's not too difficult, that a player can quickly learn what he needs to learn in order to get through it. Those are not easy things when you're dealing with such a bite-sized chunk. With the MMOs, you can depend on people investing hours into it, but in 5 minutes, that's tough.
Yeah, it's sort of some of the climax in playing an MMO is that thing that you've sort of invested all that time, and then you get sort of the reward. So it's kind of hard to get players to sort of experience a climax without actually doing all that before it.
Yeah, it is. And now, luckily, with our action combat mechanics, it's readily available to players when they get in and they're jumping around and diving, and they immediately get it. So that's really good. And then also at PAX, for the people who were able to attend, we had a really neat thing where at the end of the adventure, people open up a treasure chest and get a random prize. So that was a nice climax for people who could play it.
Absolutely. So what's the roadmap ahead? What's left to do, and what are you sort of trying to nail down right now?
So right now, well, stability, number one. We're in closed beta, and then we'll be rolling into open beta very soon, and then a launch announcement thereafter. Because the content is pretty much set in the game. Right now, it's just get every bug crushed, polish the game as much as humanly possible. And we're already planning our very first expansion, so or our very first update, I should say. We want to make sure that we've got updates coming 3 times a year, and we want to make sure when people see launch day, they can see coming soon. They know that we're going to be supporting this game with lots of features, lots of new content, on a continuous basis. That's the key to an MMO. You want a living, breathing game that can grow with the players.
So, of course, fans who have played your previous games know that you have a very good reputation with updating your games continually and that. So why did you opt to go with 3 times a year and sort of, because that sounds like a little bit bigger updates than what perhaps are available in other games that are continuously updating?
So the big difference is, well, with 3 updates a year, that enables us to be able to put major new features into the game. And we found that 4-month chunk is absolutely the perfect time for us as developers to make something significant. So to give you an example, in Star Trek, we could make star bases, guild star bases. In Star Trek, we also added a endgame system called Reputation. And so by measuring out time, giving the developers enough time to make something, to test it, and to put it out. 3 times a year is really the magic number. But in addition to that, we'll be doing regular events and other things that happen in between those 4-month cycles, so that there is, like you said, every month something new to do.
And I guess the user-generated content also adds a layer of, you have to sort of moderate that and sort of keep that sort of in line so that players experience the best possible user-generated content. How are you dealing with that?
To be honest, we're looking to the players for that. Players will be rating adventures, and in fact, they'll also be flagging things. If they're inappropriate, then we'll take action. But primarily, it's just like YouTube. What gets the best videos to the top, and what pushes the bad stuff to the bottom? Well, it's player rankings. I mean, it's not rocket science.
Well, there's also a lot of people who flag copyrighted material and stuff on YouTube. Yeah, so.
Yeah, and then you act on it. It's very easy. Got to trust the players. You know, I think sometimes developers can get into this bunker mindset where they think the player is the enemy, but that's not so. They want to enjoy the game just as much as you do. So,
are the closed beta testers, are they sort of shaping any? Have they changed any of the direction that you've taken with the game and their feedback and sort of what you've experienced there?
Definitely it's shaped, if not for launch, but what we're doing shortly after launch. A lot of, first of all, a ton of bugs. That's the number one thing they fix. Like today, the queuing system wasn't working, so we have to fix that. But, you know, hey, they want more character classes. Well, okay, that's great. Then we can say we're going to make sure to have lots of new character classes moving forward. They want more powers for their character classes. Great, that's something we can add. So definitely, those are things that feedback's vital.
So I'd say that you're one of the veterans in the MMO sort of space. Where do you see MMO games in the next sort of decade and moving forward?
Well, I think, I don't think you're going to see some of the big publishers doing MMOs so much anymore. I think you're not going to see as many of the small startups doing MMOs. 5-6 years ago, people could get investment money for an MMO, right? They'd point to World of Warcraft and say we're going to be just like them, but there have been a lot of high-profile failures. So I think what you're going to see is a lot of specialization. The teams that have done it and done it well are ones that are going to keep doing it. MMOs aren't ever going to disappear. It's just I think there's going to be maybe a slightly fewer number of developers doing it, and people like Perfect World, right? They're an MMO company, and that's really the basis of their gaming success. So I also think that the term MMO is going to shift. It's already shifting a great deal.
It's no longer just MMORPG, it's MMO games, it's online games, that sort of thing.
It's MOBAs, right? It's League of Legends. So I think there's going to be, eventually, there's already a lot of first-person shooters, but an RTS, for instance, there'll be something like that. There will probably be some sort of sim MMO coming out.
That didn't go well the first time, Sims Online.
Yeah, it was Sims Online. But I think they'll try it again, right? It comes in cycles. I've been around long enough to see that happens. So.
All right. Thank you very much for your time and enjoy the party.
Thank you. Thank you very much.